So today's sociology lesson is actually more to do with criminology than sociology. There's a phrase in criminology, we learn a bit of that in sociology, called the broken windows. The phrase refers to a phenomenon where once upon a time everybody knew everybody living on the road, and they were always looking at the windows, and they would keep an eye on the neighbourhood to make sure, peace and law and order were kept. As time moved on, there were large projects to move people out of certain neighbourhoods. New York was one of the big examples. I forget the name of the book, but a woman called Jane Jacobs wrote a fantastic book about what happened to New York, and the city planner was Moses Brown. So that's, as far as I remember, that's his name. And the plan was to build as many roads and highways as possible in and through and around the city, and in doing so they destroyed a lot of the local neighbourhoods. Similar things happened here in Ireland. You had a huge not a ghetto, what do you call them? In the States you call them something else. See, there's lots more road rage going on these days. This fits into previous videos I told you about. A lot more motorists are breaking red lights. And when I say red lights, I mean the light has been red for 5 to 10 seconds. And I noticed that happening a few years ago, but it's really increased. So you had Jane Jacobs, who wrote about how community and neighborhoods were destroyed in New York City under the plans of a city manager called Moses Brown. In Ireland you had places like Ballymun, which, okay, they fell apart. There was a lot of social problems, social unrest, drugs, cars being stolen and stuff like that. And the solution that Dublin City Corporation and Dublin County Council and other councils had was to eventually demolish the blocks of flats. And what they did, though, in doing that, is they built developments all around the outskirts of Dublin, like in Blanchardstown and stuff like that. And they actually divided families up and caused huge social turmoil. And we've had problems because of that ever since. People who would have been living within walking distance of each other and stuff like that were all put in different locations around County Dublin almost. And it caused a lot of problems, it caused a lot of trouble. You didn't have grandma and granddad available to babysit your kids, who would have been a great influence on the kids, who would have passed down traditional values. So a lot of that was lost, and that's going back 20, 30 years, maybe more. No, about 30 years. So, as a consequence of neighbourhoods no longer being neighbourly and neighbours no longer being neighbourly, you had what was called the broken window effect, in that you no longer had people looking out the window and looking out for the neighbourhood and take care of each other and that kind of things. So this was made famous or infamous, depending on your point of view, by I'm forgetting his name, the police chief of New York, William Bratton, I think his name was, Bill Bratton. And it was also made famous by the then mayor at the time, Rudy Giuliani, who decided pretty close to having zero tolerance for all kinds of crimes. The policy was that everybody who committed any kind of minor crime was to be punished, arrested and convicted. And that was going to solve all the problems. Well, it didn't. I think that's quite evident by what you see even today. Though what you see today obviously is caused by regressive liberal district attorneys who sucked up George Soros's money to get themselves elected, and who are soft on crime. But broken windows, that's a big subject in sociology and criminology. And I'm very well known in my neighbourhood because I'm always watching out my window, and my neighbours across the road who run several bed and breakfasts they're always looking at the door to see what's going on. So I've actually caught several acts of criminality in the time I've been living where I live. I caught someone trying to steal a car from across the road from a friend of mine who lived across the road. And I caught a drunk young woman one night setting fire to a whole pile of recycling, and I alerted the authorities to it. So you do your bit, you do your best, but broken windows, that's the theme of today's subject. So look it up. Bill Bratton, I think, was the name of the police commissioner in New York City, and at the time he was police commissioner. Mayor Rudy Giuliani was the mayor, and they may look back and say, look, we were very successful, and it does appear that they were successful, but then you have to ask, how many lives did they ruin? Was there racism? I'm not saying there was or wasn't. Did they pick on minorities? Who knows? You know, look at the statistics for yourself. The FBI keeps very good statistics, but broken windows, the lack of social cohesion in a neighbourhood where the neighbours all look out for each other. And let me give you an example of here's an interesting sociological example. Here in Ireland, especially in rural towns, people still say hello to total strangers walking down the street, and that's a very friendly gesture, but it's also an act to let the person know that I've seen you and I know where you were, and it's not like hostile, it's not violent, it's not aggressive anyway. It's on one hand an act of being friendly to a stranger. It's on the other hand saying, I've seen a stranger, and I'm letting that stranger know that I've seen you. So that's a kind of aspect of the whole broken windows or non-broken windows, because in smaller rural towns in Ireland, the locals will be watching out and looking out for anybody who doesn't fit in, who they haven't seen before. And so when they say hello to you, it's not just them being nice. They are being nice, but it's also them letting them know that they've seen you in their neighbourhood. Go on, ciao.